Chapter 4. Then went Boaz up to the gate, and set him down there. And behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spake came by, unto whom he said, Ho, such a one, turn aside, sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city, and said, Sit ye down here. And they sat down. And he said unto the kinsman, Naomi, that is come again out of the country of Moab, selleth a parcel of land which was our brother Elimelech's. And I thought to advertise thee, saying, Buy it before the inhabitants, and before the elders of my people. If thou wilt redeem it, redeem it. But if thou wilt not redeem it, then tell me, that I may know. For there is none to redeem it beside thee, and I am after thee. And he said, I will redeem it. Then said Boaz, What day thou buyest the field of the hand of Naomi, thou must buy it also of Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. And the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar my own inheritance. Redeem thou my right to thyself, for I cannot redeem it. Now this was the manner in former time in Israel concerning redeeming and concerning changing. For to confirm all things, a man plucked off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor, and this was a testimony in Israel. Therefore the kinsman said unto Boaz, Buy it for thee. So he drew off his shoe. And Boaz said unto the elders and unto the people, Ye are witnesses this day that I have bought all that was Elimelech's, and all that was Chilion's, and all that was Mahlon's of the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren, and from the gate of his place. Ye are witnesses this day. And all the people that were in the gate and the elders said, We are witnesses. The Lord make the woman that is come into thine house like Rachel and like Leah, which two did build the house of Israel. And do thou worthily in Ephratah, and be famous in Bethlehem. And let thy house be like the house of Pharez, whom Tamar bare unto Judah, of the seed which the Lord shall give thee of this young woman. So Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife. And when he went in unto her, the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. And the women said unto Naomi, Blessed be the Lord, which hath not left thee this day without a kinsman, that his name may be famous in Israel. And he shall be unto thee a restorer of thy life, and a nourisher of thine old age. For thy daughter-in-law, which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, hath borne him. And Naomi took the child, and laid it in her bosom, and became nurse unto it. And the women, her neighbors, gave it a name, saying, There is a son born to Naomi, and they called his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now these are the generations of Pharez. Pharez begat Hezron, and Hezron begat Ram. Ram begat Amminadab, and Amminadab begat Nahshon, and Nahshon begat Salmon, and Salmon begat Boaz, and Boaz begat Obed, and Obed begat Jesse, and Jesse begat David. We see here that Boaz went to the gate of the city, and we've made mention in earlier chapters that all of the business of the city was usually done because the officers of the town were located in the gate of the city. That was as close as they would have had to a city hall. And there were people there who were witnesses, people who could write things, but basically he went there because anybody who was a businessman would basically probably go by the gate of the city every day. And usually these places were not very big. You know, they were 5, 10, 15 acres tops, and in the course of going around town you would pass the gate, maybe many times in a day. And he called the man in who was the nearest kinsman to Naomi and Ruth, and he basically let him know that there was some property to buy, and all of these men in Israel were willing to buy the property. They wanted land because land was how wealth was generated. What they didn't want was they didn't want the family attachment to somebody else who would, especially if you had children, those children would raise up to inherit the land you bought. So even though it was an obligation, even though there was property to be had at the time of the Jubilee, every 50th year, every 49th year, the land would go back to the family that it originally was for. And so you would basically have to give it back, and you couldn't keep it. And so this man said, well, he didn't want to mar his own inheritance. He didn't want to have any complications. He was basically making excuses. So he said, well, if you're the nearest kinsman after me, then you look after this, which is exactly what I think Boaz wanted to hear, because that let him do the part of the kinsman, which basically meant the part of the redeemer to Ruth, and he could look after Ruth and Naomi and their son, as it turned out, their son, and substantially make life much easier for them, which was the kind of man that Boaz was. And that basically is the story of Ruth, except for the fact you need to note at the end of the chapter it talks about Obed begat Jesse, Jesse begat David. Obviously, this book was written long after the event, because David was already famous as King David when this was written. That's what makes this significant. This is written as part of the history of King David. And so there we have Naomi and Ruth and Boaz as ancestors to King David. Two fabulous women, absolutely outstanding, better by far than most of the men that we have read anything about, regardless of their wealth and position, but who lived the gospel exactly the way it was meant to be lived, had the faith to do exactly what they were supposed to do, and were blessed by the Lord exactly as obedient people are blessed.